Seattle. Winter rain blurred every edge of the city. 2:47 a.m. Inside a small rented apartment on the third floor, a young mother stood under the dim yellow light of her kitchen. Ava Collins stirred the last scoop of baby formula into a bottle, shaking it until the powder finally dissolved. Her son, Leo, whimpered from the crib made of an old dresser drawer. "Almost done, sweetheart," she whispered. When he finished drinking, she laid him back down and waited, watching his fingers loosen, his eyelids flutter shut. For the first time that night, the apartment was still. Ava rubbed her arms for warmth. The heater had quit again. She turned to her phone on the counter. Balance, $1,842. Rent due in 4 days. The fridge held 1 carton of milk, 2 eggs, and quiet panic. Then the phone buzzed again, sharper, heavier. Official approved wire, $950 million for harbor acquisition. Reply, yes, last 4, cut off 10:30 a.m., AME Reed Horizons Holdings. Ava blinked, thinking her eyes were tired. The logo was real. The format was bank standard. No links, no errors. $950 million. For a moment, she just stood there, the sound of rain and Leo's soft breathing mixing with the impossible number on her screen. Her instinct said scam, but something in her, the part trained from years working as a junior project accountant, noticed how clean the document header was. The encryption footer was there too. She whispered, "This can't be real." But she checked anyway. E. Reed. Search results. Elias Reed, CEO of Reed Horizons. Billionaire developer, 40 under 40. Seattle's most private man. Another vibration. Reminder, authorization pending. Her pulse jumped. Ava stared at the message, then at her sleeping son. With that kind of money, she could fix everything. Her mother's foreclosed house, Leo's medical bills. But she also knew one wrong reply, one greedy choice, and she'd lose more than she could ever count. The fridge hummed once and went silent again. She took a deep breath, grabbed a clean zip bag from the drawer, the kind she used to store pacifiers, and slid the phone inside, pressed the seal shut until it clicked. "You're not mine," she said quietly. Then she sat on the floor beside Leo's crib, knees to her chest, waiting for morning light and a decision that would define her. By dawn, the rain turned from steady to relentless. Ava left Leo with the neighbor, wrapped herself in a worn coat, and caught the 7:10 bus downtown. The phone, still in the sealed bag, was inside her pocket, heavy as truth. Seattle's skyline rose through the fog, cranes, glass, and steel stretching above her world of unpaid bills. When she stepped off the bus, the wind hit hard. Reed Horizons Tower stood in front of her, 30 floors of mirrored confidence. Inside, men and women in tailored coats moved with purpose. She hesitated just beyond the revolving door, water dripping from her hair. You could turn back now, no one would know. But she pushed forward. The security guard glanced at her wet coat and tired eyes. "Can I help you, ma'am?" Ava held up the zip bag. "I need to return this." "To who?" She swallowed. "Mr. Elias Reed." The guard blinked, unsure whether to laugh or call backup. "Do you have an appointment?" "No." Her voice was steady. "But he'll want this back." The receptionist looked up from her screen, cautious curiosity in her tone. "And you are?" "Ava Collins." She exhaled. "I'm here to return something that isn't mine." The words hung in the air, clear as glass. The receptionist hesitated, then picked up the phone. "One moment, please." Ava stood still. The marble floor reflected the ceiling lights like shallow water. Rain traced silver lines down the tall glass walls behind her. A soft chime echoed from the far hallway. A security officer appeared. "Miss Collins, follow me, please." She did, past glass offices, past people who barely looked up. Her reflection followed her in every polished surface, a woman out of place carrying something too valuable to belong in her hands. The officer stopped by an elevator, swiped his badge, and nodded her inside. As the doors closed, Ava caught her breath. This was it. No way back. The elevator climbed through the quiet. The city fell away beneath her feet. When the doors opened, a flood of light spilled in from the tall windows. Somewhere ahead, voices murmured. And for the first time since 2:47 a.m., Ava understood. She was no longer part of the world she'd left behind. She was stepping into someone else's, someone powerful, someone watching. The elevator carried Ava upward in silence. Each floor number glowed for a heartbeat, then vanished. When the doors opened, the sound changed. Less chatter, more restraint. Polished corridors stretched ahead, all steel and glass. A young assistant in a navy suit stood waiting. "Miss Collins, this way, please." Ava followed, clutching the sealed zip bag inside her pocket like a fragile truth. They passed open offices where people typed without looking up, their screens full of numbers that could feed cities or erase them. The assistant stopped before a door with frosted glass. Elias Reed, CEO. He tapped once, waited, then pushed it open. Inside, sunlight filled a minimalist space. Wide windows, quiet lake beyond, shelves lined with architectural models. At the far end stood a man in a gray shirt, sleeves rolled up, eyes fixed on a digital wall map of harbor. He turned when she entered. Elias Reed, late 30s, calm precision in every movement. The assistant spoke softly. "Sir, this is Miss Collins, the one who came about the message." Reed nodded once. "Thank you, Ethan, you can go." When the door clicked shut, Ava stood frozen near the threshold. Her shoes left small, wet marks on the stone floor. He gestured toward a chair near the corner. "You can sit." She stayed standing. "I won't take long." Reed watched her carefully, then said, "You came to return something." Ava took the zip bag from her coat and placed it on the desk. Inside, the phone screen still glowed with the message from the night before. "I think this belongs to you." He didn't reach for it. Instead, he studied her face. "You could have ignored it." "I almost did." "What made you come?" Her fingers tightened around her coat pocket. "Because keeping it would cost me more than I could ever spend." A pause, quiet, weighty. Something shifted in his expression, like recognition. He finally picked up the phone, entered a code, and the screen unlocked instantly. Reed exhaled, half in disbelief. "Our internal system ran a simulation last night. It sent this test authorization by mistake. You intercepted it before anyone else could." "You looked up," he continued. "You realize what would have happened if you hadn't." Ava hesitated. "I didn't want to find out." He gave a faint nod. "Most people wouldn't have come here. They'd call a lawyer first." "I can't afford one," she said simply. The corner of his mouth almost curved, half amusement, half respect. "Then you must understand, integrity doesn't usually come cheap." "I'm not here for a reward," Ava replied, "just to make sure it's safe." Reed's gaze softened, the kind that measures rather than judges. "You've already done that." He turned off the phone, placed it aside, and leaned forward slightly. "Do you mind if I ask what you do, Miss Collins?" "I used to be a project accountant," she just said, "until the company downsized last year. Construction, small scale, mostly residential infrastructure." "Then you might recognize this." He gestured toward the large wall map, the one Ava had noticed when she first walked in. It displayed dozens of zones marked Harbor Redevelopment Project. Ava stepped closer instinctively, scanning the grid lines, and then she saw it. One name printed near the bottom edge. Brook Lane Avenue, her mother's block. Her voice tightened. "That's my neighborhood." Reed turned slightly. "Is it?" She faced him. "My mother lives there, or she did before her building went into foreclosure. Are you the one taking it down?" He studied her reaction. "You think I'm demolishing it?" "I think the map says enough." The rain outside thickened, tapping the windows. Reed took a moment before answering. "I'm not the one trying to erase Harbor Care, Miss Collins. I'm the one trying to save it." Ava frowned. "From what?" "From people who see it as land, not lives." He stepped closer to the map, pointed to a cluster of red lines near the waterfront. "This project is supposed to rebuild storm defenses, affordable housing, green zones. But some of my contractors decided there's more profit in fake invoices and inflated budgets." Ava blinked, trying to follow. "So you're saying—" "I'm saying we're bleeding millions into things that don't exist," he said quietly. "And every dollar they steal is one less home rebuilt." Her mind caught on the words fake invoices. That was a language she knew. "Why tell me this?" Reed looked directly at her. "Because you found what half my board pretends not to see. The cost of doing the right thing. Maybe you understand it better than they do." Ava shook her head. "I just returned a phone. And in doing so," he said, "you returned something I thought this place had lost." She hesitated. "What's that?" "Trust." The word lingered, unexpected and heavy. He checked his watch, then looked back up. "There's something I'd like you to see before you go downstairs in accounting." "I don't work here." "Neither do most of the people who fix things," he replied, already heading for the door. After a long pause, Ava followed. They walked down a quieter corridor, past the glass offices where assistants whispered over budgets. The hum of printers and servers filled the air. Through the window, Rain streaked like ink over light. When they reached the accounting floor, Reed handed her a thin folder. These are project summaries. I can't prove the fraud yet, but the numbers feel wrong. Ava flipped the pages. Columns, codes, flood control expenses doubled overnight. A familiar signature on the bottom. Harlan Company Contractors. I've seen this pattern before, she murmured. Padding safety budgets. Triple billing consultants who don't exist. Reed studied her reaction. Would you be willing to look closer? Ava hesitated. You don't even know me. I know what kind of person returns $1 billion she doesn't own. That stopped her cold. The hallway lights reflected in his eyes, rain and glass blending into one. He extended a business card. If you change your mind, call me. No obligation. Ava took the card. Her fingers brushed his briefly, and she felt the faint tremor of someone who carried too much control for too long. Then he said quietly, You did the right thing, Miss Collins. That doesn't happen much around here. She turned to leave, but before stepping into the elevator, she glanced once more at the map of harbor behind the glass wall. The same streets, the same rain, but now carrying questions she couldn't shake. The bus jolted as it hit a puddle, spraying the window beside Ava. She barely noticed. The folder from Reed Horizons sat on her lap, edges damp from the rain. Leo slept against her shoulder, warm and heavy. The city lights rippled through the fog outside, every glow a question she couldn't quiet. Why her? Why trust a stranger who showed up with $1 billion mistake? She opened the folder again. Rows of figures, vendor IDs, payment dates, flood prevention invoices duplicated twice in 1 week. A signature she recognized from her past job. Harlan Company Contractors. She traced the numbers with her finger, each inconsistency sharp as a whisper. Someone was siphoning millions under storm infrastructure. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Miss Collins. The voice was low, deliberate male. This is Andrew Miles from Harlan Company. We understand you met with Mr. Reed this morning. Her stomach tightened. How do you know that? We have connections inside Reed Horizons, he replied, and we're aware he showed you documents concerning harbor. She stayed silent. I'm calling because we'd like to make things easier for you, he continued smoothly. A woman in your position shouldn't have to struggle. You've done the right thing returning that phone. Let us show our appreciation. A pause, then $300,000 cash, delivered discreetly. All you need to do is stay quiet. Ava stared at the rain sliding down the window. Her hand trembled slightly. Is that what you call appreciation? It's a chance, he said. Not everyone gets one. Take it, Miss Collins, or you'll wish you had. The line went dead. She sat there motionless. Leo stirred in his sleep, making small sounds. Ava reached for him instinctively, then stopped. Her hand froze in midair. She looked at the folder again. Numbers that once seemed harmless now felt like a threat. The knock came 5 minutes later. 3 short raps. Ava turned off the light, heart pounding. Through the peephole, an envelope taped to the door. She waited until the footsteps faded, then opened it. Inside, no note, no name, just cash. Thick stacks. A faint scent of cologne. The kind of money that could erase years of hunger, bills, and fear. Her breath hitched. She set the envelope beside the baby bottle on the counter. For a long minute, she just stared. Then she whispered to herself, almost a prayer, No, not this way. She reached for the Zay bag again, the one she'd used to return the phone, and slid the envelope inside, sealing it shut like a crime scene. The next morning, the sky was a dull gray mirror. Ava returned to Reed Horizons, holding that same zip bag. Security recognized her instantly. Back again? Yes, she said. I need to see Mr. Reed. Minutes later, she was standing once more in his office. Reed looked up from his desk, surprised. You found something? Ava placed the zip bag in front of him. Someone found me. He frowned, unzipping the bag. His eyes narrowed at the sight of the cash. Where did this come from? Your contractor, Harlan Company. For a moment, only the rain filled the silence. Reed's voice was low, restrained. They tried to buy you off. Ava nodded. $300,000 to stay quiet. He exhaled slowly, jaw tightening. You should have called the police. And told them what? She asked. That a single mother got bribed after walking into a billionaire's office with $1 billion mistake? His expression softened. You could have kept it. I know. Why didn't you? Her eyes met his. Because I'm already tired of owing people. The room went still. Something in him, something buried under years of corporate armor, shifted. He leaned back, looking at her with quiet respect. You said yesterday you weren't here for a reward. I'm not, she said, but I won't pretend I'm not scared either. Then let's make it official, Reed said. If they're willing to bribe you, it means you're close to the truth. Work with me, Miss Collins. Help me prove it. Ava hesitated. I'm not sure I belong in your world. He shook his head. You already stepped into it the moment you brought that phone back. The rain streaked harder against the glass as he added quietly, now we finish what you started. The next morning, Seattle wore its usual gray armor. The rain never stopped, only softened enough to remind people it was still there. Inside Reed Horizon's tower, Ava sat in a small corner office that used to store spare monitors. A temporary badge hung from her sweater. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, steady and cold. On the desk before her lay stacks of digital printouts, expense sheets, subcontractor logs, and vendor approvals. Each line was a puzzle, every number a clue. Elias's voice came from the doorway. You're really doing this? She looked up. You asked me to help. I didn't expect you to start before sunrise. Ava gave a faint smile. Single moms get used to working before the world wakes up. He stepped closer, setting down 2 coffees. Black or sweet? Depends on how bad it gets. Then black, he said. They shared a quiet laugh, brief, human, before returning to the screen. Hours passed. Ava traced inconsistencies. Flood barriers built twice. Safety inspections signed by non-existent engineers. Each anomaly pointed back to Harlan Company, and further up to a middleman named Vexler, listed as project advisor. By noon, she circled one page and slid it toward Elias. This vendor, IDVEX47, doesn't match any federal license. It's a shell company. See this? Elias leaned closer. They're routing funds through it. Exactly. They're inflating preventive maintenance costs, then funneling the excess through this alias account. How much are we talking? Ava calculated fast. Roughly $38 million hidden inside a flood defense budget. Elias's jaw tightened. That's where the missing capital went. He turned away, staring out at the rain-streaked skyline. They're gutting harbor care from the inside, while the board blames me for delays. Ava looked at Etienne. You can expose it if you move fast. He nodded, but his tone carried exhaustion beneath control. Every name I accuse is tied to shareholders who can bury this with one press release. Then we go under the radar, she said. Start with the invoices, quietly. Build evidence they can't erase. Ava studied him a moment. You talk like someone who's done this before. I have, she said softly. Only last time I spoke up, they let me go. By evening, the building emptied. The lights dimmed to a warm amber. Ava packed her notes, but before she left, Elias stopped her. I'll walk you out. They crossed the silent lobby together, the sound of rain echoing through the glass atrium. Outside, headlights smeared across wet pavement. Be careful, he said. If Harlan knows you're involved. They already know, she interrupted gently. They sent money to my door. He looked at her, conflicted. You shouldn't have to be part of this. I already am, she replied, because people like them count on women like me staying quiet. That stopped him. For once, the controlled billionaire had no reply. The next day, Elias called a closed meeting with his legal counsel and security head. Ava was there, quietly taking notes. We've confirmed the shell accounts, she explained, flipping open the files. And here's something else. These safety reports were signed off by someone who doesn't exist. Look, she showed them a digital signature, W. Harris. Elias frowned. Never employed here. It's a fabrication, she continued. The same signature appears across multiple project phases, all tied to the inflated cost line. The legal counsel leaned forward. This is dangerous. If we expose it now, the board will spin it as an internal scandal. Investors will panic. Elias's tone hardened. So we do nothing? Not nothing, Ava said, surprising them both. We go higher, federal oversight. Quietly file it before they can intercept. The counsel looked uneasy. You're suggesting we hand over internal evidence against our own board. I'm suggesting you protect the people you claim to serve, Ava replied. Elias met her eyes. For a long second, something unspoken passed between them. Trust, maybe, or respect carved by risk. He finally said, prepare everything. I'll take the fall if I have to. That night, Ava returned home, exhausted. Leo was already asleep. She sat beside the crib, watching the small rhythm of his breathing. She whispered, we're okay, baby. Just a little longer. Then her phone buzzed again, an encrypted message, unsigned. Truth won't save you, Miss Collins, but it will bury him. She stared at it until the screen dimmed. In the reflection, Rain glimmered against the glass, just like the day she returned that phone. Only now she realized doing right wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of the storm. Morning headlines hit like a hammer. Billion-dollar project scandal. Reed Horizons under federal scrutiny. CEO accused of harbor corruption. By 8 a.m., news vans surrounded Reed Horizons Tower. Flashbulbs exploded behind the glass lobby. Inside, Ava waited in the elevator, her reflection pale in the mirrored doors. Her ID badge felt heavier than ever. When the doors opened, she stepped into chaos. Staff whispering, screens flashing news feeds, lawyers moving fast. At the end of the hall, Elias stood before the boardroom doors. His face was controlled, but his eyes were shadowed by exhaustion. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly as she approached. "I started this with you. I'm not running now." "This isn't loyalty," he replied. "It's danger, maybe both." He looked at her a long moment, then nodded. "Stay close. Don't speak unless you have to." Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere was electric, all tension and accusation. The 12 board members sat like a tribunal. At the head was Charles Densor, impeccably calm, voice smooth as glass. "Mr. Reed," he began, "the leaks have placed this company in jeopardy. The SEC is calling for an emergency audit. Our stock has fallen 18% in one day. Investors are demanding your resignation." Elias stayed composed. "If you believe I'm behind this, you're mistaken." "Then who?" Densor asked. Elias didn't answer. Densor leaned forward. "You built Harbor. You signed every contract. If fraud occurred, the responsibility falls on you." Ava watched in silence, her hands cold in her lap. She glanced at Densor and saw the smallest flicker of something behind his composure. Control, satisfaction. When the meeting adjourned, Densor approached Elias with a sympathetic tone that didn't match his eyes. "Step aside quietly, Elias. Protect what's left of your legacy." Elias didn't flinch. "I protect the truth, Charles, not the lie you built." Densor's jaw tightened. "Careful. You don't know who you're fighting." As he walked away, Elias muttered, "Now I do." That night, Elias called Ava to his private office. Stacks of printed articles lay on his desk, the headlines circling like vultures. He poured coffee, his hand steady only on the surface. "They've frozen internal access. All our data systems are locked under review. The federal agents will be here in 48 hours. Then we give them what they need," Ava said. "The full evidence set." He shook his head. "They won't believe it came from us. The leak poisoned the trail. They'll think I'm hiding behind forged evidence." Ava's eyes hardened. "Then we find another way. Go around them. File directly to the federal office through a personal whistleblower channel. But to do that, we'll need to extract the source files before they disappear." "You mean tonight?" She nodded. "Before Densor wipes them." For a moment, neither spoke. Rain lashed against the glass, thunder low in the distance. Finally, Elias said, "If we do this, we do it right. No shortcuts, no lies." She said, "Good." He gave a faint smile. "You really don't scare easily, do you?" Ava looked out the window at the city that had forgotten people like her. "Fear doesn't fix anything." Later that night, the Reed Horizons building was nearly empty. Ava swiped her temporary ID. The elevator hummed downward to the archival basement, the company's digital cold storage. Elias waited there, already in front of a terminal, typing access codes. The hum of servers filled the air like steady breathing. Ava handed him a flash drive. "This will mirror the entire Harbor database." "Once we take it," Elias said, "there's no going back." "Neither of us were supposed to be here in the first place," she replied. They started the extraction. Lines of code flickered across the screen. Progress bar, 32% to 47%. Then the monitors blinked. A warning flashed red. "Access terminated. Admin override." Elias swore under his breath. He's shutting it down remotely. Ava thought fast. If he's online now, he's leaving a trail. She disconnected the network cable, isolate the terminal. Now we can't stop it locally. Elias stared at her. "You just cut the company's main link." "Then hurry." Minutes later, the transfer completed. She ejected the drive, sealing it inside a metal case. Elias looked at her, a mixture of respect and disbelief. "You just outmaneuvered a board director." "Not yet," she said. "He'll come for you next." At dawn, as the rain eased into mist, Ava left the building through the loading dock, flash drive in her coat pocket. Across the street, a black car idled, tinted windows, motionless. She felt it before she saw it. Someone watching. Her breath slowed. She turned the corner, blending into the bus crowd. Behind her, the car pulled away. The war had officially begun. Seattle's dawn came in steel blue. The streets glistened with a thin film of rain. reflecting headlights like veins of light. Ava sat by the window of her apartment, flash drive in hand. It looked harmless. Silver light, small. Yet inside it lay proof that could destroy or save everything. Leo stirred in his crib. She brushed his hair gently and whispered, "We're almost there." Her phone vibrated. A single text from Elias. "We move at 10 o'clock. Federal building, no turning back." At 9:58 a.m., Ava stepped out of a taxi in front of the Federal Oversight Bureau downtown. Elias waited near the entrance, coat collar up against the drizzle. "You sure about this?" she asked. He nodded. "Once it's in their hands, we can't control the outcome, but at least the truth won't belong to them anymore." They walked through security, sat across from two federal auditors. The older one, Agent Moran, tapped into the table. "You understand what you're alleging, Mr. Reed? Corporate fraud on a billion-dollar scale, implicating your own board?" "Yes," Elias said, "and I have the data to prove it." Ava placed the drive on the table. Her hand trembled slightly as the agent slid it into an evidence envelope. Moran's eyes moved between them. "You'll both be under investigation too. Once this opens, everything about your involvement will become public record." Ava's throat tightened. Elias answered first. "We understand." That night, headlines shifted again. Federal oversight receives whistleblower data from inside Reed Horizons. Anonymous source suggests board corruption, not CEO. It spread like wildfire. But then another headline followed. Faster, louder. Whistleblower identified Ava Collins, former accountant, turned insider. Her photo, the one from her temporary ID badge, filled every screen. Ava froze in her apartment. The phone rang nonstop. Reporters, strangers, threats. When she finally picked up, it wasn't any of them. It was her mother's voice, small and trembling. "Ava, they came by the house asking questions. What did you do?" Ava's voice cracked. "I told the truth, Mom." "You don't understand," her mother whispered. "They said you're helping the man who's destroying Harbor Care." The words hit harder than any headline. Hours later, Elias showed up at her door. His coat was soaked through. "You need to leave town for a few days," he said firmly. "I can't," she replied. "My name's out there now. If I run, it proves them right." He exhaled, pacing. "The board's painting you as the leak. Dinsora is calling you a fraud, claiming you blackmailed me." "I should have seen this coming," she muttered. "Truth doesn't scare them. Losing control does." Elias stopped pacing, voice low. "Ava, this is what they do. They twist good people until they give up." She looked up at him. "And you didn't?" He met her eyes. "I had to learn not to." That night, Elias drove her to a safe location, a small storage loft above a retired coworker's print shop. The hum of rain followed them in. She sat on a crate, exhausted. "They'll come after you next." "They already are," he said quietly, "but they forgot something." "What?" He looked at her with quiet resolve. "You and I are not the story they think they're writing." For a moment, silence filled the room. Two people who'd done the right thing now hunted for it. The next morning, the Federal Bureau confirmed part of their findings. Falsified invoices tied directly to Merrimack Holdings, Densori's shell partner. But the twist came when the investigators discovered hidden contracts inside the Harbor Care files. They weren't from Harlan Company. They were government permits signed off months ago. Ava studied the printout in disbelief. These aren't fake. They're official city approvals. They were planning the demolition months before the fraud started. Elias's expression darkened, meaning this isn't just corporate corruption. The city's involved. The truth had shifted. The enemy was bigger than either of them imagined. He looked out through the rain-blurred window and said quietly, "We were trying to save Harbor from the board, but now it's the whole system." Ava nodded slowly, her voice steady. "Then we don't stop at them." Rain hit the windows like static. Every channel in Seattle carried the same headline: Whistleblower Ava Collins, hero or accomplice. The story looped on repeat. Split screens showed her photo beside Elias's. The captions twisting the truth. Single mother caught in billion-dollar scandal. Did she help cover the fraud before exposing it? By the time Ava reached the print shop loft, her inbox overflowed. Half messages of praise, half venom. Elias was already there, staring at the muted TV. The light from the screen washed the room in cold blue. He didn't look up. "They're turning it into entertainment." Ava dropped her coat on the chair. "They always do. If they can't discredit the story, they'll discredit the people." He turned, eyes sharp. "Then we stay louder than the lie." That evening, Densori held a press conference from Reed Horizons HQ. His tone was calm, rehearsed. We regret the actions of Mr. Reed and Miss Collins, who appear to have falsified data to protect their own interests. Reed Horizons will fully cooperate with the authorities. Ava watched from the loft, fists clenched. He's flipping it, making us the criminals. Elias said nothing. He was writing something longhand on a notepad. What are you doing? Drafting a statement. Not for the press, for the employees. He handed her the paper. If integrity costs us everything, then that's the price I pay. But Harbor Care was never built for profit. It was built for people. And no board, no lie, no threat will change that. Ava stared at the words. You'll lose everything if you release this. Elias looked at her, steady. We already did. Now we fight to keep what still matters. Later that night, Ava's phone rang again. An unfamiliar number. She hesitated, then answered. Miss Collins, the voice was low, official. This is Agent Moran. We need you to come in immediately. Her pulse quickened. Is something wrong? There's been an update. We traced several payments from Merrimack Holdings. One went directly to a city council member. Ava's breath caught. You're saying the city was bribed? Worse, Moran said. We think the demolition permits were backdated to legalize the fraud after the money moved. She went silent. Ava, he added, we'll need your statement. In the drive. She hesitated. The drive's not safe here. Then make sure it doesn't disappear, he said, and hung up. The next morning, the air felt thicker, heavier. Ava and Elias sat in his car outside the federal building. He looked out the windshield. If the city's involved, this will go beyond corporate scandal. You understand what that means? That we'll both be buried before it's over, she said quietly. He turned to her. Then we make sure it counts. They walked in together, passing cameras, whispers, and the cold marble echo of judgment. Inside, Agent Moran led them to a private room. On the table sat two files, one stamped confidential, the other sealed by court order. Moran opened the first. We have enough to indict the contractor in Densor. Sorry, but if we touch the city files, the mayor's office will retaliate. We'll need you to testify publicly. Ava felt the room close in. You mean as the face of this? Yes, Moran said. You're the only one with first-hand evidence. Without your statement, the case won't hold. Elias spoke before she could. She's already risked her life once. I'll testify instead. Moran shook his head. The leak was tied to her. Her name is already public. The optics demand her voice. Ava looked down at her trembling hands. If I do this, they'll destroy me. Moran's voice softened. They already tried. That night, Ava sat alone on the floor. Leo asleep beside her. The rain outside turned the city into a blur of gold and gray. She picked up the photo of her mother's house, the same one circled on the Harbor Care map. Everything began with that photo, she whispered, almost to herself. Maybe it ends there too. The following day, Federal Courthouse, Seattle. Rows of press filled the lobby. The storm outside blurred the glass walls like fogged memory. Elias took the stand first, calm, controlled. He presented the timeline, how the contractors' shell companies siphoned public funds through ghost invoices and false flood mitigation contracts. Then came Ava. The courtroom fell silent as she approached the witness stand, flash drive in hand. Agent Moran stood nearby. State your name for the record. Ava Collins. And what do you hold? The original Harbor Care audit files, unaltered, time-stamped before the system breach. Her voice didn't shake. More unplugged in the drive. The monitors lit up. Thousands of entries, each one stamped with digital signatures from Densor's accounts. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. One by one, the names of contractors, city clerks, and board members appeared, tied to illegal transfers. The judge leaned forward. Miss Collins, you're saying these records predate the alleged leak? Yes, Your Honor. They were extracted before Densor shut down access. I was there when it happened. And who authorized that extraction? Elias stood. I did. A hush spread. The judge nodded slowly. Then both of you just changed the course of this case. By afternoon, news swept across every network. Federal hearing confirms massive corruption in Harbor Project. Whistleblowers' data validated. Board director under arrest. At the same hour, Charles Densor was escorted out of Reed Horizons HQ in handcuffs. Elias watched from the courthouse steps as rain began again, steady and cold. Agent Moran approached him. You just took down half a city's corruption ring, Mr. Reed. Elias shook his head. We only showed people what was already there. Moran looked at Ava standing beside him, then added quietly, sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. That evening, the storm eased. Ava stood at the same spot by the water where it all began. She watched the skyline flicker. Not perfect, but alive again. Elias joined her. They cleared me today, he said, and the Bureau wants you as liaison for the recovery phase of Harbor. She smiled, faint, disbelieving. You mean rebuild what we almost lost? Yes, he said, together if you'll take it. Ava looked toward the horizon. The rain had stopped, but the streets still shimmered. Funny, she said softly. It all started with the wrong message and ended with the right one. Elias replied, Seattle, 2 months later. The rain had turned softer now, not a storm, just the steady rhythm the city had learned to live with. At the Harbor Care Community Center, sunlight slipped through the glass roof that still glistened from the drizzle. The building smelled of paint and cedar, new but rooted in old soil. Volunteers moved between tables, hanging signs for the opening ceremony. Children ran across the polished floor, their laughter echoing in the atrium. Leo, now walking sturdier and taller, tugged at Ava's sleeve. Outside, Elias Reed arrived quietly. No press, no entourage. He wore the same dark coat from that last rainy day. He paused at the entrance, watching the people fill the space. Ava turned and saw him. You made it, she said softly. I wouldn't miss it, he replied. You built this. We built this, she corrected. He smiled, the kind that reached his eyes this time. As they walked through the hall, Ava stopped by a wall plaque newly mounted near the entrance. It read, The Harbor Care Promise. Integrity is the foundation of every home. Dedicated to the people who chose what was right, even when it cost everything. Underneath, 3 engraved names, Ava Collins, Elias Reed, Agent Daniel Moran. Ava traced her name with her fingers, then looked up at Elias. He insisted we include you, Elias said. Moran. Elias nodded. He called it your wall of proof. Ava laughed quietly. He's still with the Bureau? Yes, and he says next time we find corruption, we call him before hacking mainframes. She smiled. No promises. They stepped out onto the terrace. The rain had turned to mist, hanging low over the harbor. Across the water, cranes moved, rebuilding, restoring. Ava leaned on the railing. Do you ever miss it? What? The boardrooms, the power. He thought for a long moment. I miss believing that power meant control. Now I know it just means responsibility, and freedom's heavier than I expected. She nodded. That's the price of doing right. He glanced at her. You remember your line? How could I forget? A bell rang inside, the ceremony beginning. Ava was to speak first. She hesitated, nerves fluttering. Elias whispered, You'll do fine. Ava looked at him. You always say that right before I have to do something terrifying. That's because it's always true. She laughed under her breath and stepped forward. Inside the hall, the crowd quieted as Ava took the podium. Her voice, calm and steady, carried across the space. When this project began, Harbor was just an idea and a dangerous one. People told us it was impossible to rebuild something so broken. But we learned that integrity, like a foundation, doesn't crack under pressure. It only shows who stands firm. She paused, eyes meeting Elias's across the room. 2 years ago, I got a message I was never supposed to receive. It changed everything, not because of the number on it, but because it asked me to decide who I wanted to be. And I think that's the question Harbor asks all of us now. Who do we want to be when no one's watching? Applause filled the hall. Elias watched her step down from the podium, sunlight catching her face. For the first time since this began, she didn't look like someone surviving. She looked like someone becoming. Later, when the crowd dispersed, Ava walked outside again. The rain had stopped entirely. The sky, for once, was open. Elias joined her, holding 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one. No press, no secrets, just quiet, he said. Feels strange, Ava admitted. Good strange? She nodded, like the calm after the storm. Elias raised his cup to Harbor Care. She raised hers to doing the right thing, even when it costs everything. They clinked cups gently. No fanfare, no music, just rain-soaked wood beneath their feet, the hum of a city healing, and the sound of Leo's laughter from inside. Ava glanced toward the water, her voice soft. You know, sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd ignored that message. Elias smiled faintly. Then maybe someone else would have gotten it, but I don't think they would have done what you did. She looked at him, eyes steady. Maybe that's why it was sent to me. He held her gaze. Maybe it was. Rain begins again, soft, cleansing, falling over the rebuilt Harbor Care, where families move in, children run, and a woman once lost to struggles stands in the light she helped create. Thank you for watching the story to the very end. If Ava and Elias's journey moved you, please give this video a like. It helps more people find stories that inspire hope and courage. Subscribe to our channel for new heartfelt stories every day. See you in the next one.